A very good morning and welcome to the breakfast meeting. Kitui Flo is my name. Now, Uganda has been a part of the fight against malaria for a very long time. A tropical disease for a tropical country. And this fight, we've had some wins, we've had some losses. But one thing is for sure, malaria is still a very huge part of the challenges that we struggle with here in Uganda. But, of course, we always appreciate any new efforts towards ending malaria in Uganda and, of course, extending those efforts outside of Uganda to other tropical areas. And joining us for that conversation on what they're doing to ensure that we say goodbye to malaria forever. Joining me on my panel from MYCU, and they're going to be telling us what that is. First, allow me to introduce Dr. Ismail Munyamu, who happens to be the team lead for MYCU. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning and thank you.
Joining us on this panel as well is Hilder Namuddu, who is the executive team member for MYCU. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
So before we get into understanding who MYCU is, I'd like to know, what are we doing? Where are we now with regards to malaria? What's the status quo? What's happening? Is it gone? Is it still here? How bad is the situation?
Okay, so malaria in Uganda. Well, I will start with the World Malaria Report. We have WHO releases a malaria report every year.
Okay.
So for the most recent report being 2020, the one of 2022, which was released in 2023, we have approximately 249 million cases of malaria worldwide. But now if we come down to Uganda, Uganda is taking up it's taking up a huge percentage of those cases, because in the WHO African region, we have countries that are given, we have percentages attributed to the different countries.
Yeah.
So with an increase, okay, the studies have been going on now. If you compare, we have an increase. We have from 2000 to 2019 and 2022.
Yeah.
So from 2019 to 2022, we have an increase of around 11 million cases in the region.
So now the whole region?
No, yeah. So now Uganda itself it takes up 5.1% of the increase of the cases, because we have 11 for 2019 to 2021 and then 6 million for specifically for 2022. So that 5.1% puts us in the third position behind DRC and then Nigeria. So those are the malaria cases that we have. And then when you look for the malaria deaths, the deaths that are in the world, the deaths that are attributed to malaria, we have a significant, okay, still it's mainly the African region.
Of course.
But now, yeah. So, okay, yes, our position in 2021 was like 7th position with a 3%. And then currently, we stand at 2.9%. And that puts us in the 8th position behind still other countries like Nigeria, DRC, and then Tanzania. So that's what we attribute to the deaths in Uganda. So it's not that malaria has been eradicated in Uganda, because we're still contributing the highest number of deaths. And then when you go to the outpatient departments, the clinics where patients are seen, you'll find that in Uganda, most patients, around 30% of the patients that come to clinics are diagnosed with malaria. And then those that are admitted, if someone is to be admitted for malaria, it has to be a severe malaria case. Most times it's severe malaria. So it has to be managed, and that requires admission. And that's like 15% of all admissions are attributed to malaria.
Imagine.
Yes.
Those are huge numbers. Putting us at number 8 in deaths and number 3 in cases is quite high, I'd imagine.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about malaria in communities. There was a time when we had a great deal of fear, where getting malaria was such a big problem. Do we still have that kind of effect of malaria on communities? Is there still a fear, a sort of, is there a concern about malaria? Are communities being affected by it?
Well, I do believe there is a concern, though I believe one of the reasons that's why the malaria itself is not going down, because we have interventions that are coming in, but they're not being taken up with that desire that you would want them to be taken up with. So in communities, people are, because the most scary thing is the fact that someone can die because of malaria. So if someone, let's say, knows that my relative died because of malaria, and like there is that fear still, just that it really went down. Now in communities, we have the children, and the children below 5 years are the most are the ones that suffer
high
the
risk.
most. Yeah, they are high risk patients. And then also pregnant women. So the pregnant women are at high risk because, okay, there is the fact that let's say that the mother that gets pregnant for the first time is at a higher risk than someone who
a repeat mother.
Yeah, a repeat mother, exactly. So the communities are they are seeing that we are spending a lot of money on treating malaria, yet it could be prevented. Yes, this is being seen, but I don't think it's out there enough. Like, people are not getting the impact that malaria has on our socials, our economics, and the productivity that comes out of the population. Because let's say, for example, someone is supposed to be, let's say for the youth, for example, you're supposed to, the productivity really goes down if you're not going to work. And then the money that we invest in preventing and also treating the malaria itself is having a significant impact on us. Like, for example, there is a study, and Uganda is the money that is spent in malaria management, prevention, and treatment is losses approximately $500 million US. So that is a significant financial impact, yes. But for the communities, we really need to engage them because the children and pregnant mothers are really at high risk.
Indeed,
Yes.
indeed. Now, when we go away from the general community and now we speak about the youth, you've mentioned one of the issues and how malaria affects the youth. What other effects do we see malaria having on the youth?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And I would like to just add on what my colleague has said. From that bigger picture, drawing it back to the young people, we need to take ourselves back with the fact that we are the largest demographic in the country, on the continent as well. This basically takes us to the fact that we are the gears or the key contributors to the economy. So anything that really brings any kind of disability to the young people, it causes a disability to the economy, I should say.
Sure.
So for malaria, in terms of losses, like my colleague had said, that they projected in the year 2022 a whooping 500 million US dollar loss per year, just in managing malaria, and probably the time taken off, work. And me and you, as we are young people, just take for instance, you're not working for your company for the next 3 weeks because the management for malaria, staggers between 2 to 4 weeks. So you're taking off all that time off the working schedule. That's really less productivity.
Absolutely.
And away from that, it has a huge social impact as well. Like my colleague mentioned about the children below 5 years. So when these people having severe cases of malaria, they're at very high risk of having issues around their, I should call them brains, because when they suffer maybe the severe forms, it will come with a lot of complications like convulsions, and this is going to retard their development of the brains. And this in the long run will have a bigger impact on the productivity of that particular young man.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, we can't even mention losing lives, youth losing their lives to malaria, which has been seen more recently. So because of the kind of effect it has on the youth, let's talk about the other side. What now do we feel is the role of the youth when it comes to the fight against malaria?
Yeah, well, I think it still draws back to the demographics as being the majority. We feel we should own up this campaign to end malaria. Because if you look at such a scenario, it would be very detrimental for any thinker to come up with an intervention and then they don't put young people at the forefront. Because
Absolutely.
It will never be sustainable. You're going to initiate it, you're going to leave the scene, and then you might leave it in the wrong hands.
There is no continuity.
Exactly. So we feel they should be put at the forefront to bring in that sustainable bit into all these interventions. Like, for instance, the Ugandan government focuses on around 4 to 6 interventions, and these, of course, are funded by the Global Fund and the government itself. Number one, they're doing mosquito net distribution, they're doing indoor residual spraying, they're doing larviciding, There's recently a new intervention in Karamoja called seasonal malaria chemo prevention. They're doing integrated community case management. All these interventions are very, very good. But then, us as young people, our argument is where and how are these young people being engaged in all this? Because as government and the partners, they really have a good will. But the issue will come back to how sustainable these are going to be.
Yeah, of course. Now, in comes Malaria Youth Champions of Uganda, and this is part of why we're here today, to talk about now the interventions that you've just been mentioning and the role of youth in the response against malaria. And one of those interventions in collaboration with Malaria Free Uganda is Malaria Youth Champions of Uganda. Tell us a little bit about that. Give us a background on who MYCU is.
So the Malaria Youth Champions of Uganda, we are a flagship end malaria youth initiative from a bigger, broad initiative from the African Leaders Malaria Alliance. The genesis of these champions came from the former chair of ALMA. ALMA is the Africa Leaders Malaria Alliance. So the former chair, that's His Excellency President Uhuru, wanted to champion a youth agenda as his legacy in the entire, ALMA fraternity. And in so doing, they came up with a strategy of, forming youth champions in all the countries that ratified ALMA. Over 30 countries that ratified ALMA are in the process of forming these youth champions. Of course, the first was really Kenya because that's where the chair was coming from.
Of course. And
we were privileged that Uganda was among the first countries as well because we have a good, a receptive environment in our country, and, as young people are always so passionate about ending malaria. So from that agenda, these youth champions were meant to be co-opted by the different national malaria control programs in the different countries that ratified ALMA. And it's exactly what's happening for our case in Uganda. So in country, we are supervised by the National Malaria Control Program or National Malaria Control Division at the Ministry of Health.
Okay.
And outside the country, we are guided by the Youth Engagement Office and then the ALMA Youth Advisory Council. Yes. Interesting.
Very interesting. Now, understanding MYCU, we know that this is going to be there's going to be a launch for MYCU. Is this your first year? Tell us a bit about that. Are you just starting out as MYCU? When did you start? How long have you been in existence?
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, we've been around since 2021. That was our first introduction into the end malaria space as young people. But we had not taken up the mantle because, of course, any process coming on board, you have to go through, certain procedures and the like. So we became so much evident in the year 2022-2023, and that's when we started doing quite a lot of vigorous activities. And the one that was really so close to our hearts were the social behavior change communication activities that we've been doing. We've supported the Ministry of Health during the mosquito net distribution campaign. Of course, doing the social behavior change communication around proper net usage, proper handling of the nets, how you can get the nets during that mass campaign. We've as well done some social behavior change communication around the seasonal malaria chemo prevention in Karamoja. Of course, taking to stock the fact that this is a program implemented for the children below 5 years. And we felt that because young people in that region are mostly the biggest contributors to having the kids. Like you can meet, most of the families are run by the young people. So we wanted them to own up the intervention to encourage their women to take these children to get all the 4 doses of the seasonal malaria chemo prevention, on a monthly routine. So we've supported Malaria Consortium and the Ministry of Health in that. And then we've been running online malaria advocacy platforms via our social medias like Twitter. We do have monthly Twitter spaces and monthly webinars. Basically to spread awareness about any malaria hot topic in time. And then we always get that informal feedback from the young people, and we, in way of a report, we present it as recommendations to the partners in the end malaria space.
Interesting, very interesting. So now the launch is upon us. What do we have planned for the launch?
Well, I think this is something exciting for us, because us being around for the last 2 or 3 years without having that formal recognition.
A formal introduction that says we're here.
We've been around informally, and we've done really amazing work informally.
Nice.
And now we are thinking, imagine after the formal introduction.
I hope you don't win the election and then stop campaigning.
Not really,
I hope the work continues even after.
Not really, because we do have a very, very passionate group that we are working with. My team have a small secretariat. My team and I have really seen to it that we engage the young people that are much passionate about ending this, this malaria thing. So for the launch, it's going to be more of, highlighting what we've done so far, and still highlighting what we are going to do, and trying to recognize some of our champions that have really done a recommendable job in at least seeing us to where we are apparently.
Okay, so speaking of what you've done before and what you plan to do, after the 14th of March, which happens to be your launch, what next for MYCU?
We have been having ongoing small programs like the advocacy. Most of our programs are really embedded in our 3 core areas. Number 1 being innovation, and we have taken into account that young people of this generation are really adept with tech. So we do believe they could have a big contribution to innovations around malaria. Of course, you may wish to understand that the causative or the mosquito spreads malaria, and it carries the causative agent. But this mosquito is having a lot of changes. Even the parasite it carries, it's going through a lot of integrations and changes. So we might land ourselves maybe after how many years, like the interventions we're using now might not be relevant anymore. So that's why we are encouraging the young people to bring their adeptness to technology into this field. Okay. The other, like I hinted on, is really awareness. And that's where we do our spaces, and webinars, and we as well do mainstream media, SBCC as well, like what we are doing right now. Then the other is advocacy, when we support the different partners like the Malaria Consortium, the Ministry of Health, to do things like ICCM, SMC and the like. So we are going to continue with that. Of course, we shall have some other new small programs on board. Like we are looking forward to begin our monthly malaria podcast, very youth focused, and it's not the as usual focus of interviewing an expert. No, we want to bring a new format of how we communicate to the masses, because you can agree with me that the communication dynamics are different now.
Absolutely.
People are so much interested in visuals, more than just reading content. So we want to dance to that tune.
Absolutely.
So our podcast is going to be more of an inspiration one. We want to draw a line and bring that very inspiring story from a malaria, maybe endemic place, or person who has really suffered the negative consequences of malaria. Bring it on.
Make it more relatable.
Exactly, so that it can inspire me, Ismail, to just do the small activities like sleeping under mosquito net, like draining stagnant water around my home, like cleaning the gutters, up my roof. They look simple, but that's how we can prevent malaria.
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. That seems like quite the roadmap, and you seem quite ready for post-launch MYCU. Speaking of post-launch MYCU, what message do you have for anyone? It could be someone, a youth who's watching you and saying, what's my role? It could be anyone. What's your final message to them?
So my final message to the youth, you see, we want to call the youth to action. We want to have a call to action for the youth, whereby, like my colleague has mentioned, all these interventions whereby the government is implementing the mosquito net distribution, where we have the seasonal malaria chemo prevention, where we are having the larviciding, and then also the social behavior changes, where so a youth, the person who's a youth, or most probably someone who's interested, we need them to get acquaint themselves with this knowledge, to acquaint themselves with these interventions, to actually involve themselves in the innovations.
Yeah.
So when we put out calls for innovations, it's because we are creating a platform for the youth to come on board and make sure that our country is not among the leading countries that are contributing to malaria cases, because we have countries that have been declared malaria-free, in Uganda itself, Algeria. So the youth can actually come up, because we have a significant percentage of the population that is made of youth. So we would like them to come up and support all the interventions and actually come up with new interventions for themselves. I mean, for the youth that can be fronted out there, so that we end malaria in Uganda. So it is, my call to the youth is zero malaria is going to end with us, and it has to start with us.
Indeed,
we
indeed.
have to start.
Just to quote your own words, hashtag, we are the generation that will end malaria. I look forward to that. That's very encouraging. Tell me, Dr. Ismail, tell me, first off, what's your final message to anyone that's watching?
Well, I wouldn't differ much from my colleague, and mine is going to be more of a request to all the Ugandans, not only the young people, because however much interesting and working all these interventions that the partners and the ministry come up with, it's going to take an individual commitment to end malaria. You know, because it's different, the government telling you to sleep on the mosquito net, and actually it goes to the far end of even providing the mosquito net. And then you can, you know, not
you
sleep
take up the mantle
exactly.
from there.
So it's going to take our individual commitment to really adhere to those innovations. So for me, it's a call to all the people in the communities that we need to really take a personal decision that we want to end malaria in the country. Then for my young people, like my colleague had said, I'm just really calling them on board. Let's embrace the interventions. Let's bring our innovative minds. Let's bring our energies. Let's bring our numbers on board. And I do believe this is going to help the partners who are doing this to even get more energy of, you know, wanting to involve the young people.
Absolutely.
Then the other probably is just thanking our partners that we've worked with, you know, till now. The likes of health entrepreneurs, the likes of Think IT, the Ministry itself, Malaria Consortium, ALMA itself. They've been really a big hand to see us through all the process, and then actually having this launch in the coming 2 days.
Wonderful. Second, could you let us know what platforms you have and how people can get in touch to be a part of this fight?
Well, yeah, so the easiest is through our socials. They are really open. We have our official Twitter account, which is at Malaria Youth UG, and I want to comment that it's probably the most busy social media handle
I can imagine.
We do use. It's very, very interactive, you know, very responsive. And of course, we do also have our website that's really filled with all the information that we want the young people to know. And it's very easy for them to join us, you know, by contacting us through the website, or they can also visit us at our, you know, youth desk at the Ministry of Health. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Ismail Munyamu, for that message of encouragement. And of course, allow me to use this moment to say Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Karim.
Ameen, ameen.
Thank you.
Dr. Ismail is the team lead for MYCU Malaria Youth Champions of Uganda. And of course, on the panel with us as well is Hilder Namuddu, who is the executive team member for MYCU. We do call upon you, not just the youth, but every single one of you, to put your own effort, your own impact, your own hand to fighting malaria. And it's very simple. There's so many interventions. There's so many ways to do that. Just choose one and help in the fight against malaria. I know I'm doing my part, and I hope you are as well. Allow me to wish you a good morning and a good day. Kitui Flo is my name.